No, but I did.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. We are still at the New Orleans Investment Conference. Good friend of mine, Kevin Dougan, Katie Bluesky Marketing, which does marketing for a lot of these mining companies that are presenting here at the conference this week. Also writes quite a bit, digging in and doing some research. So, Kevin, great to have you on here. How's everything going, sir?
Chris, nice to be here. How's it going? It's going very well, thank you. Things are taking off like a rocket ship.
Well, we're getting there. I mean, silver's finally above $15, which is nice. Some movement in the metals, and I know you dig into the mining stocks. So perhaps to kick it off, any particular names that you've come here to see that you're looking at or that you're interested in learning about?
Well, most of the companies that I'm interested in don't come here. The reason being money. I am really focused on the junior explorations, and some of my favorite companies are so cheap right now that people would look at me like I'm crazy if I invest in them.
Yeah.
But you know what? Crazy like a fox. I've done very well in the past, and I think I've got my subscribers in very early in some stocks that are ready to take off.
Yep. So what is it that draws you to the junior miners, which obviously you have some great upside when you hit them, but what specifically, why the juniors?
Why the juniors? Because they're at all-time lows. They have nowhere to go but up. The ones that are still here, that are remaining, actually know what they're doing. They've been doing it 15 years. They haven't folded up shop. What I focus on is companies that have not had rollbacks. So to me, a rollback kind of shows a sign of weakness, but companies that are out there that haven't rolled back in 15 years, those are the kind of companies I like.
All right.
And I like tight share structure, but that's almost impossible when you have companies that don't have rollback. So it used to be where 50 million shares was the threshold. Now it's probably 120 is the kind of threshold I look at for mining companies.
And in terms of some of these companies, is it the balance sheet that you're looking at primarily? Because again, with, it's a challenging price environment. I think there's a case to be made that a lot of these companies, if they can stay in business until you have at least where I see significantly higher metal prices, yet it may be great if you have $50 silver one day, but if the company doesn't have silver or doesn't make it to that point, so how do you go about analyzing that part?
If I looked at balance sheets, I wouldn't invest in anybody.
Right.
I invest in people, management. What I want in management is skin in the game. I want companies that buy shares in the open market. They're not diluting their stock with warrants, and just companies that believe in themselves more than believe in silver or gold. They believe in what they're doing. They know what they're doing. It's a waiting game. And the only people who are going to get rich in this business are the ones that are able to wait it out, buy when things are low. And who can do that except me and you? And I speak for myself. I don't know if you do it, but I have the ability to do that.
Well, certainly, the last 8 years has been quite a test in patience. I think back to that movie, The Big Short, a lot, where, one of the things that pointed out there was a big opportunity, but you saw really the stress that each of those investors, they portrayed there in their own ways, whether it's having, your boss or, your investors that maybe don't see it as with as much conviction, which is really something that's required. I think there's, you have negative yielding debt, so there's reasons to have that conviction, but it seems like that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of the money is made by 10% of the people.
Right.
And I'm part of that 10%, maybe the 1%, because I venture out, not from the 10%, I go down to the 1 where it's the absolute bottom fish of bottom fish. These are the carps of the gold industry. They're down there swimming around, and I know them. I've been following them. I have personal relationships with a lot of them. I've taken them out to dinner and paid for dinner because they don't have the money for dinner, but I believe in them.
Yep.
And my money is where my mouth is. I wrote a newsletter in Christmas Eve of last year called the 12 Days of Christmas. For people out there who haven't read the 12 Days of Christmas.
Which I have
Just-
read. We posted on Arcadia Economics. So
It brought in 2 more extra viewers for me. I want to thank you for that.
yep,
No,
yep,
we're growing, aren't we? You know, but
yep.
Rome wasn't built in a day. And my newsletter is fantastic. And it's fantastic because I don't follow what anyone else says. I do what I want to do. And I don't, the only person I got to get rid of is my sales manager because he's just not bringing in the business.
Yep.
You know who the sales manager is?
Who's that?
It's me.
Well,
So I got to fire myself and then close up the company. But you know what? We're not going to do that because we are ready to take off.
Well, I think there's a metaphor in there that's similar with a lot of the entrepreneurial nature of some of the companies are here, where it's having a team that each person does the role that they're meant for. I know your favorite part, more than doing the sales or the marketing, is digging into these stocks. And are there any names that you're currently looking at that you could share any insight that people might want to look at for further?
Well, going back to the 12 Days of Christmas, I recommended a stock called Golden Goliath. GNG is a symbol, GGTHF is a symbol on the US, and it was a penny.
Yep.
I called up my best friend who's self-made millionaire, has money, and trusts what I do. So I told him I wanted to invest in this company. He says, it's a penny. I says, yeah, it's a penny. He says, I can't buy nothing at a penny. And I'm like, they have more money in the bank than the market cap's worth. You can't lose on this one.
Right.
Long story short, a month later, it's 11 cents. You know what he said to me? Why didn't you tell me to buy more shares?
Well,
So,
that's
right.
how it often goes.
Right. So now the company has drifted back down because they were riding the coattails of Great Bear's news releases.
Right.
So they're back down around 3-4 cents, Golden Goliath. They sit on the same trench that Great Bear's on, 10 miles away. It's never been drilled. They got these claims before Great Bear even hit anything, right? So I just talked to Paul Sabera, the CEO, and the problem up there is it's marshy ground. It's muddy, so you can't drill. So you have to wait till the ground hardens, and that's going to be in about a month, and they're going to drill. Now, are they going to hit? Who knows? Can they hit? Absolutely. Did Great Bear go from 30 cents to $7? Yes. So Golden Goliath at 3 cents. To me, it's worth a shot.
So are you looking at some of these in terms of having a basket diversified, and that you imagine there's going to be some percent that hit, yet when they do hit, the upside covers that
the losses? Absolutely. And that's why I invest in the juniors. You can't hit them all. Mickey Mantle was the greatest hitter of all time. He hit 33%. You're rolling your eyes. All right, maybe Carl Yastrzemski or what? Some boss. He's a Boston guy. I'm a Yankee guy. Ted Williams. Well, he's from San Diego, so that's okay. Ted Williams will take.
I heard
that's where I'm from.
Learned to hit at your house in the backyard.
Wiffle ball. Yeah, that's the way you teach a kid to hit. So anyway, what were you saying about Golden Goliath?
Yeah, and I mean, another thing with some of these penny stocks where, for the folks who are experienced in the mining industry, I like the way Rick Rule phrases it. Some of these CEOs, if they weren't working for a mining company, would be going to 7-Eleven with a gun and a hockey mask. So a funny way of saying that there are good projects out there. There are also some things that are more of the Enron-ish. So how do you distinguish between the two?
What you do is exactly what we're doing. You look people in the eye. I've been a national sales manager. I've been in sales for 40-something years. I can look someone in the eye and tell them right away. I mean, in college, I took some criminology courses, body language, that sort of stuff. I can smell a rat a mile away. And there are a lot, and I want to say rats, we'll call rodents, all right, in there. And for all good intentions, I think they believe in what they're doing, but they don't really know what they're doing. Right. There's a certain skill set it involves. It involves being able to raise money, finding the project, getting the right geo. But in my eyes, what it's all about is marketing, because there's 1,500 companies there. So what the MIC does and what Chris Marcus does is we go out and we try to sift through these 1,500 companies, and maybe there's 100 here, right, or whatever. And we sift through those and we find the best of the best of the best. And I think if they're interviewing with Chris, they're pretty darn good companies.
Well, we're trying to do that. And again, it's interesting. You mentioned how the different skill sets where, the geologist, probably not the greatest marketer, maybe some cases they are, but having people who are able to cover each of the buckets, because getting the word out there, being able to let the public know, it's a capital intensive business. So you need to have
and that
parts.
is a problem. When I see a GO being the marketing person, that's a red flag to me. A GO should be an expert at what he's doing, and then the marketing person should be an expert at what he's doing. It's a three-edged stool that has to balance. And I have companies, and I'll be, one of them, I guess I can talk about the Serengeti Resources. The guy was Miner of the Year 15 years ago. I put all my money in him because I believed in him. I made a lot of money off it, 15 cents to $4.
Yep.
Same guy, same story, more advanced, and now the market's a lot tougher. It's dilution, shares, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is he's trying to be the marketing guy.
Yep.
He gets a news release. What happens? Crickets. So I call him up and say, well, we can't afford market. You can't afford not to have marketing. Sorry.
Yep.
Because then when you're raising money, you're raising it at a dime. It could have been, but you can't fix stupid. I'm sorry to say that. But he's a great geologist. And if I was going to go out looking for gold, I'd hire him. I wouldn't hire me. Right. So we're all good at what we do.
Yeah, and I think that touches on one of the key points, whether, especially here at the New Orleans Investment Conference, but throughout the mining industry, is that really, and you touched on as well, having a team in place. Again, I learned my own lessons where there's the parts I'm good at, and then doing a landing page makes my head start melting. So really having not people doing things they're not meant to do,
Right.
But when you see those things come together, it can be a good
Right.
formula.
And I think case in point is you have Yara working for you. Until Yara came working for you, you were running around with a chicken, your head up, trying to do everything. Now that you're focused on what you can do, your business is taken off because you were able to segment that part of the business to someone that knows what they're doing. Same in mining. People need to think that they're not so important that they need to be a team. Yep. It's like in any sports. There's no I in team. And it's same in management, same in marketing companies. You can't do it alone. And a lot of guys that think they can.
I think that's the same in just about any business or probably any area of life, which is why, when you do see those things in place, at least one good sign to do further due diligence and then look into the numbers. Whereas to me, it's like if you just doesn't feel right, the management, whether you can specifically pinpoint it or not, again, you don't have to invest in every stock. And Kevin, perhaps in wrapping up, you can let folks know where they can find you on the web if they'd like to know more about the names you're looking at.
But one thing I do want to talk is about some of the names, because that's what we're all here for. There's a company called Arizona Silver, run by Mike Stark. They have only about 50 million shares outstanding, which is very, very tight. They've got money in the bank. They also have insider buying all the time. Their CDR page is green. There's no sales at all. He was a former fire captain of the Vancouver Fire Department, shows a lot of character. He runs the company. I love that company. And, the other big victory I had was BlackRock, 3 cents. It's now 38 cents in this market.
Yep.
And how I found that is one phone call. I interviewed him, talked to him, and right off the bat, I said, this guy's a winner. And he is. I don't know if you met him yet. Okay. Well, I might send him over to you. Because I think your readers would and subscribers will really be interested in talking to someone like him.
Yeah. And again, for folks to find you so they can read more in depth what you're putting out there.
Well, www.kdblueskymarketing.com. I have a Twitter page with a link on my website there. I have a Facebook page. Come to all these shows. People can talk to me anytime. It's only one caveat. They're buying the drinks.
Yep.
Everything I do is free. All these people say, oh, you're making me so much money. And I said, well, how much are you paying me? Well, nothing. I go, well, do you know how much the company's paying me? They go, well, nothing. What's wrong with this business model?
Well, that is part of the challenge, finding the way all the things fit together. One of the things you mentioned is that I like is that these CEOs, that the good companies are accessible.
Right.
You can call them. It doesn't have to be a black box. So, Kevin, great to catch up with you. Good
Same
to see
here,
you
brother.
again.
Thank you.
Hope you're enjoying
And just so you know, I'm in rarefied air talking to Chris. He talks to some of the best names out there. Who are some of the names top upper shelf people you've talked to? I can't
I've-
believe some of the people you've talked to.
Been fortunate to talk to a lot of folks mining. Jim Rogers caught up
Jim
with last
Rogers,
year's,
big
which
name.
was really nice, having met him a couple times back in my trading days. And one of the things that's nice, I find people are generally more accessible, and it's really nice that contact people. And I think there's benefit in marketing your business, getting the word out there. So I'm quite fortunate to be able to do what I do. And
And as an aside, you interviewed Gata yesterday. That's going to be an epic interview. Bill Murphy.
yeah, we had a good time there, did some conversations from the bar, which we will be posting. And that said, we will wrap up for now. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.